The courtroom was cold, silent, and tense. Every creak of the wooden benches sounded louder than it should. The air smelled faintly of coffee and fear, that unique scent that fills the room when justice hangs by a thread. At the defense table sat a woman named Angela Morris, a single mother who had spent her life trying to make ends meet. Her hands were cuffed, her eyes swollen from nights without sleep. She wasn't a criminal, just a grocery store clerk who got caught in the wrong place, at the wrong time, accused of stealing $2,000 from the register she managed. The store's cameras were broken, the witnesses unreliable, and the evidence, a series of printed receipts, painted a damning picture. But none of that mattered to Angela in that moment. Her heart wasn't on the evidence table or in the judge's hands, it was sitting in the front row, clutching a folder almost as big as his chest. Her son, Eli, only 9 years old, watched with wide eyes and trembling lips. He was too young to understand court procedures, but old enough to recognize injustice when he saw it. When the judge called for closing statements, the prosecution stood tall and confident. "Your Honor," the lawyer said, pacing with ease, "this is a clear case of theft. The defendant had access, motive, and opportunity. The evidence speaks for itself. The store's loss matches the amount missing on her shift. Justice must be served." The jury nodded along. The defense attorney, a tired public defender juggling too many cases, simply sighed. "Your Honor," he began weakly, "my client maintains her innocence. She has no prior record, and her son." Before he could continue, a small voice interrupted. "Your Honor, my mom didn't steal anything." Every head turned. Eli stood up, shaking but determined. His voice was small, but it carried across the silent courtroom like thunder. Angela gasped softly, her cuffed hands trembling as she tried to motion for him to sit down. The judge blinked in surprise. "Young man," he said gently, "you can't speak here without permission. Please return to your seat." But Eli didn't move, he hugged the folder tighter. "Please, Your Honor, I have proof." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the prosecution frowned, unsure what to make of it. The judge, clearly torn, leaned forward. "Approach the bench," he finally said. "What proof do you think you have, son?" Eli walked forward, his small shoes echoing on the marble floor. His hands trembled as he opened the folder. Inside were papers, notes, and something else, a small USB drive taped to the back of a notebook. He handed it over. This is from my mom's phone. I copied it at my school because she didn't know how. It shows what really happened." The bailiff took the drive, plugging it into the courtroom computer. For a few seconds, the screen flickered, and then a video appeared, grainy but clear enough to make everyone lean forward. The footage showed Angela at work, counting money at the register, just as she did every night. Then, another figure entered the frame, the store manager, Mr. Daniels, a man in his 40s with a pressed suit and nervous hands. He waited until Angela left for her break, then reached under the counter, took a stack of bills, and typed something into the computer. The screen showed Angela's name next to the transaction. He looked around, pocketed the money, and walked out. A collective murmur filled the room. The prosecutor's face turned pale. The defense attorney blinked in disbelief. "Where did you get this?" the judge asked, trying to steady his voice. Eli sniffed. "My mom always said she didn't do anything wrong. When the police took her, I went to her work after school. I remembered the cameras above the register. The manager said they didn't work, but I checked the storage computer. The video was still there. I emailed it to myself before he saw me." The judge sat back, speechless. "You're telling me you recovered this yourself?" "Yes, sir," Eli said quietly. "My teacher helped me put it on this drive. I wanted you to see the truth." Angela broke down in tears. For weeks, she had prayed for a miracle, but she never imagined it would come from her son. The courtroom was still as the judge replayed the footage again. It was undeniable. The evidence that once condemned her now exposed the real criminal. Within minutes, the case unraveled. The prosecutor asked for a recess, scrambling to verify the authenticity of the footage. But the timestamps matched perfectly. The bank reports confirmed that the missing money appeared in Daniel's account 2 days later. There was no doubt, Angela was innocent. The judge removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes as if trying to compose himself. "Mrs. Morris," he finally said, "you are free to go. This court owes you an apology." Angela stood slowly, unable to believe the words. When the bailiff removed her handcuffs, she immediately knelt beside Eli, pulling him into her arms. The room erupted in applause, not the formal kind, but the emotional, human kind that breaks through protocol. Even the stern judge allowed himself a faint smile. "Son," he said, "you did something extraordinary today. You didn't just defend your mother, you restored justice." Eli looked up, eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted my mom back." That night, the story made local headlines. Boy exposes store corruption, frees innocent mother. But beyond the news, beyond the cameras, there was a deeper truth, one that echoed far beyond that small courtroom. Angela's case became a symbol of how easy it is for the powerless to be silenced, and how courage, even from a child, can break that silence. People wrote letters to the court, to the school, to the family. Donations poured in. The grocery store fired the manager, and he was later charged with embezzlement. But Angela didn't seek revenge. She just wanted to live quietly, rebuild her life, and give Eli the childhood he deserved. "He's my hero," she said in an interview later. "When everyone else gave up on me, my son believed." Eli's bravery didn't just free his mother, it changed their entire community. The school started teaching a new program on ethics and truth, using his story as an example. The local news station invited him to speak about what inspired him. His answer was simple: "My mom always told me to do what's right, even when it's scary." Months later, the judge invited Angela and Eli back to the courthouse. This time, not for a trial, but for a ceremony. The city awarded Eli a Courage and Justice Medal, the youngest person ever to receive it. As he stood on stage holding the medal, he glanced at his mom, tears in her eyes and pride in her heart. "Sometimes," the judge said during the ceremony, "the truth doesn't come from lawyers or evidence files. Sometimes, it comes from a child who refuses to let the world be unfair." Angela and Eli's story became a viral sensation online, not because of fame or drama, but because it reminded people that love can uncover truth, and truth can restore faith. Millions watched and cried, sending messages of hope and admiration. It wasn't just a story about a courtroom, it was a story about the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Years later, when Eli grew up, he decided to study law. Not because he wanted power, but because he understood what justice really meant, not just words in a book, but the courage to stand up for what's right, no matter who you are. He often said in interviews, "That day, I wasn't trying to be brave. I was just trying to bring my mom home." And in a world where truth is often buried under lies and power, that simple act of love, a boy holding a folder bigger than his chest, standing up in front of strangers, became a light that still shines today. Because sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they just stand up and say, with trembling voices and unshakable hearts, "My mom is not guilty." And when they do, the world listens.